Welcome back to another episode of Stand on Guard. We have got so much happening today, and I don't know where to begin, but we're going to find a place. When we come back, what's happening with the situation? I have to be very careful with my words so I don't get demonetized in Europe and the world. What did Justin Trudeau say to the NATO parliamentarians? That was just absolutely outrageous. And I've got the latest on what NATO is actually saying about a first strike. They're not saying first strike. That's been misinterpreted. But let's get on with it.
So we are in a very precarious position in this country. We need political change, but we also need the resolve to resist.
Yes, please like the station and this broadcast. Do so now if you can, because I get suppressed every day when I talk about these issues. Can't talk about some things on this station or you get demonetized. We've talked about that. I don't want to beat a dead horse over that, but we've got to be so careful. It's gotten worse since Donald Trump's election on November 5th. It's incredible. Certain words will trigger demonetization, images. Everything is being censored. So we're trying to get the news out that you need to know. And anyway, it's astounding. I've got so much. I've got too much information for you this morning, but we're going to try to get through most of it. And I think it's extremely important we do so. And yes, so support the station. Subscribe. We're really low on subscribers this month. I think people are being unsubscribed at an incredible rate. Please resubscribe if you need to, if you can, but subscribe if you've never have before. It's appreciated. I'm committed to this station. I'm committed to seeing this work through. Let's listen to what Justin Trudeau said to the NATO parliamentarians yesterday. Incredible bit. This is, mind you, just after, the day after, he goes to a Taylor Swift concert like any other teenage girl, makes a fool of himself, trading bracelets with teenage girl. Just, I hate to use the word cringe because it's the most overused word in the vocabulary today, but it was a cringeworthy moment. But here's Trudeau trying to explain Canada's military doctrine.
We are in an extraordinarily pivotal and difficult time in the world right now. The destabilization of the rules-based order that has held and steered us so well for over 70 years. The shifting geopolitical conflicts, the rise of authoritarianism, our challenge is that we must rise to meet and that NATO is extraordinarily important in. And as one of the NATO leaders, when we gather as leaders, as defense ministers and governments make decisions around investments and path forward, it is impossible to overstate the important role that all of you as parliamentarians play in this critical time. Because as leaders, yes, we make decisions around investments, around policy, around allocations, around a strategic path forward. But as democracies, we don't get to move forward unless citizens are involved and are supporting the work that NATO does. You as parliamentarians across NATO countries represent almost 1 billion people in the world. And the conversations that you have and the leadership you show on bringing your citizens along is more important than ever, because some of the greatest threats to NATO are not just aggressive, hostile actors with weapons and guns and arms. The destabilizing of the consensus around our democracies on the rule of law, the rise of misinformation, of disinformation, of attacks on truth.
You couldn't wait and had to get to misinformation, disinformation.
As parliamentarians, you all know that politics vary from country to country. And in many countries, and perhaps even in most countries, more conservative parties have a better reputation in terms of investing in NATO, investing in the military, than more progressive parties. There are lots of exceptions out there, but in general, that's sort of the story we tell ourselves. The more right-wing parties tend to invest more in defense, the more left-wing parties do less. That's actually been the reverse in Canada.
Ah, incredible arrogance. Not to mention, what a bald-faced lie.
Of decades. When my progressive Liberal government took office in 2015, the previous Conservative government had dropped investments in defense to below 1% of our GDP. They were very good with photo ops and waving the flags. They were not so good in making necessary investments, and they even cut veteran services and a number of different services for military families. So we ended up stepping up big time when we took office in 2015, doubled our spending on defense, on our way to tripling the spending in defense.
This is bloody bullshit. Just bald-faced lies coming from this charlatan. Trudeau is not on his way to tripling, and he hasn't doubled. All of his so-called investments in national defense are 10 years in the future. Look at the defense policy from the spring. All of the spending, with the exception, defense spending actually went down in the last budget. All of the defense spending that's going up is 7 to 10 years in the future when Justin Trudeau, God willing, will no longer be with us as a prime minister, at least, and will not be the same Liberal government. So this is just creep to suggest he's on his way to that 2% of the GDP threshold. He's on his way to tripling defense spending. He is a liar. And I'm just sick of listening to him at times. I think he's about done.
We are on a clear path to reach 2% in the coming years because we know that the world is changing.
Oh, and just how he even has the gall to show up after looking like a bloody fool at a Taylor Swift concert. I have no idea, but it just makes me sick. I want to make one point here really quickly. Donald Trump is talking about 25% tariffs on Canadian goods. And why is he talking about that? Because Canada has an open border policy that Donald Trump wants to fix in the United States. As everyone is aware, thousands of people are pouring through Mexico and Canada, bringing crime and drugs at levels never seen before. Right now, a caravan from Mexico is composed of thousands of people, seems to be unstoppable in its quest to come through our currently open border. I will sign all necessary documents to charge Mexico and Canada a 25% tariff on all products coming into the United States and its ridiculous open borders. This tariff will remain in effect until such time as drugs, in particular fentanyl, and all illegal aliens stop this invasion of our country. Okay, we had to get that out. That's what this tariff's about. Maybe this will get Trudeau off his ass and into action. I don't know. Certainly, look at the latest poll here. Biggest lead ever for Poilievre's Conservatives. He's 20 points ahead of both the Liberals and the NDP. 47%. That's the most he's ever had. You add up the PPC and the Conservatives, it's 50% of Canada is small c Conservative. I haven't seen anything that high in years, especially when the Conservative Party, for the most part, is acting like a real Conservative Party and is not trying to be the other Liberal Party in this country. I've never seen the Conservatives that high. That's really, really good news. Good news for everybody. Now, I want to set something straight. We're going to be talking briefly here about the world situation and the danger on the horizon. But there's been a lot of talk about In fact, I talked about this morning when I was on my friend Mark Patron radio show, and this is a Dutch admiral, Rob Bauer. Let's double check that here. He's speaking at the Center for European Policy on the weekend. But listen, he does not say, thank God, he does not say that NATO has adopted a first strike capability, that it's going to attack Russia first. Now, there's a lot of crap going on. They're talking about giving Ukraine nuclear weapons, which is insane. They're also saying whoever gives the weapons to Ukraine can tell Ukraine how to use them. That's insane, too. It's chaos. But at least we haven't gone past this line.
It's smarter not only to do that, but also to attack the archer that is in Russia, if Russia attacks us. So you need to have a combination of deep precision strike with which you can take out the weapon systems that are used to attack us. And of course, because we're a defensive alliance, we will have to take the first blow. So Russia will start the conflict because we are not going to attack Russia out of nothing. Yeah, we will need more air defense. That's one of the lessons from Ukraine. And at the same time, we are going to invest in the deep precision strike.
Now, Admiral Bauer made the unfortunate choice of words here by saying, take the first blow. He means be the recipients of the first blow. It's a problem with the language. It's imprecise. You can use the word take in an offensive or defensive context. I can say I'm going to take a blow, which usually means I'm going to get hit. If I say I'm going to make a blow, that means I'm going to hit. But it's the imprecision of the language that take can also imply, at least, an offensive action. He should not have used that word because it's leading to massive misunderstanding. And my God, the Russians might be misunderstanding this too because of translation problems. It was not a good choice. These guys should all shut up because the more they talk, the more confusing it gets and the more potential for an accidental outbreak of war.
To activate nuclear weapons, should Western long-range weapons be used on targets in Russia? How worried are you about that?
Well, I always took the view that it is wise not to talk too much about what we are doing, yes or no. Clearly, NATO has said before, when allies deliver systems, weapon systems to Ukraine, it is best not to put restrictions on them. That's a general view, but then it's up to the individual ally to decide what they do. What we see at the moment is the escalation of the war because of Russia getting North Korea involved.
That's not what's escalating the war. You people are escalating the war by giving missiles to Ukraine. And to say that there's no central control over this, whatever country gives the missiles can decide how Ukraine uses them. NATO is supposed to be a military alliance. Well, it certainly is that, but it's a military alliance without any coherency, any clear objective anymore, except to poke a stick at the Russians, except to foment nuclear war, except to destabilize the continent of Europe and the world. And this is insane. Here is Lindsey Graham, that old idiot, warmongering senator. I used to really admire Lindsey Graham. But he's a rhino. He's only conservative just before he has to be reelected to the Senate. And he is a warmonger who wants foreign wars to continue for the rest of his lifetime and yours.
Is still standing. This war is about money. People don't talk much about it. But you know the richest country in all of Europe for rare earth minerals is Ukraine. $2 to $7 trillion worth of minerals. that are rare earth minerals, very relevant to the 21st century. Ukraine's ready to do a deal with us, not the Russians. So it's in our interest to make sure that Russia doesn't take over the place. It's the breadbasket of really the developing world. 50% of all the food going to Africa comes out of Ukraine. We can make money and have an economic relationship with Ukraine that'd be very beneficial to us with peace. So Donald Trump's going to do a deal to get our money back, to enrich ourselves with rare earth minerals, a good deal for Ukraine and us, and he's going to bring peace. And Biden's been a disaster when it.
Well, I sure hope Donald Trump's going to bring peace. But that's what this war was all about, Lindsay. Trillions of dollars of minerals that the United States can take. It was all about money. And of course, the money that was raised by buying armaments and giving away armaments from the US on all NATO countries because they all had to be bought back. Makes trillions of dollars for people, namely companies like Boeing, Raytheon, McDonnell, Douglas, Northrop, on and on. These are the countries that make the weapons. They make billions, trillions of dollars off these wars. And the stockholders, many of whom are House of Representative members, many of whom are senators, and we have lots of them in Canada too, who are making lots of money off this war. And now they want to make lots of money off the peace in Ukraine, which of course they think they're just going to move right in and exploit the country. So I hope Donald Trump makes a public stance right now about the need for peace. Because believe me, all of everything that's going on right now in Canada about do we want a GST rebate? Do we want our $250 in January? It's all meaningless if this thing unravels. Meaningless. Let's listen to this. This is one of my favorite shows. It's Judge Napolitano. And this is Judging Freedom. He's got former UN Arms Inspector Scott Ritter on the show yesterday, talking about some very strange selections Donald Trump has made.
Well, we already know what the risks are because this is the second time we've gone through this scenario. The first time, of course, was in September when Joe Biden was ready to issue such authorization on September 13th. On September 12th, the Russian President Vladimir Putin made it clear that if this were done, this would be interpreted by Russia as an act of war and would be responded in kind. On September 13th, the day Biden was going to sign off on this, he had a White House meeting with Keir Starmer, the British Prime Minister. The Russian ambassador to the United Nations reiterated that if he signed that document, a declaration of war would have been signed. And this was backed up by the Russian ambassador to the United States, Anatoly Antonov, who spoke to several officials, former government officials, who called him at the behest of the Biden administration to find out were the Russians serious. Anatoly Antonov said not only were the Russians serious, but that when this went nuclear, notice what I said, when this went nuclear, the United States would be involved. So he said there will be a nuclear war and America will be part of it. It won't be limited to Europe. Biden wisely backed down. So we know exactly what's going to happen. The Russians have not changed their posture whatsoever. If Ukraine, let me make it as clear as possible. If Ukraine uses an ATACMS missile to strike a target inside Russia, that is in Kursk Oblast, Russia will say that that's an attack by the United States and will treat it accordingly. It will be a state of war between the United States and Russia. And from what I understand, I've been in contact with sources in Moscow. First of all, let me just say that the Russians aren't panicked. What the Russians are saying is that the decisions have already been made. Anybody who's looking for a convoy of vehicles running to the Kremlin to decide, the decision has been made. It is automatic. The moment the ATACMS is used, Russia will respond, and the response will be catastrophic for Ukraine and devastating for NATO and the United States. When I say catastrophic, Kiev will be destroyed. It won't be a nuclear weapon, but I've been told what the weapon probably will be, and it'll be a gigantic thermobaric bomb that will level downtown Kiev, killing everybody there.
It's actually not the clip I wanted. We're going to have to show that one tomorrow. But when I say some strange nominations, we've got Sebastian Gorka back in the Trump administration as a low-level staffer, well, in the National Security Agency. I think in counterterrorism, in charge of counterterrorism. This is very bizarre. But I wanted to show you this. This was on. Do you ever watch this broadcast? It's one of the most popular broadcasts around. And this is a woman who makes some startling accusations about Pierre Trudeau. I put this out there. I don't know if this woman's 100% accurate. I don't know if this woman's 100% legitimate, but this is fascinating.
You're not going to probably, I know a lot of survivors of David Rockefeller, but I don't think you're going to find any accusation online about David Rockefeller. It's all about cover-up. It was very, very good. All the investment, all the money goes, I mean, not all the money, but it goes a lot to the image.
You gave a couple other names to me earlier. I don't want to say it until you're comfortable. One of the names was another famous politician from the West.
Yeah.
How did you meet him?
He was also there that week.
He was also there that week.
Yeah, Pierre Trudeau.
And what was the interaction with you?
Scary.
Was his wife also involved or just him?
I didn't see his wife, or I don't know. I didn't see anybody else but him.
But you vividly remember him. And when did you know it was him later on? Because at the time you were 9, 10 years old.
Yeah, again, this came much, much later. I don't remember exactly when I realized that it was him.
You don't remember when he came to you later that it was Pierre?
No.
Justin Trudeau's father, right? That's
Yes.
who you were talking about.
Yes.
And I mean, you've never mentioned his name before, right? No. Trudeau. What was that relationship like, or the experience like? Was it a one-day thing? Was it a repetitive that happened?
All right, I'll tell you something. David Rockefeller had me trained as a spy. So I was a sex slave, of course, and I was an elite sex slave now. And I was trained as a spy through the mind control training. And so that week, I was sleeping with men, and then I would go report on their weaknesses or their sexual preferences to David Rockefeller.
Why did he need that information? Is that how to blackmail and use it later on in negotiation?
For example. Or if he knows what they want, then he can give it to them sexually. So about Trudeau, I said that I could never please him as long as I was alive. That's how scary that was.
You could never please him?
If I was alive.
With Trudeau?
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean?
It means that he couldn't kill me because at that point I was not a throwaway child. And he scared me enough so that I then tell Rockefeller that that's what he wants, a child to kill. Then you understand that the next time he can, if he wants to use that, he can use it.
Now that, I encourage you to watch Patrick Bet-David's show and see the whole interview, but that is incredible testimony. Like I say, I haven't read this woman's book. I've never seen her before. I've never seen her interviewed, but it is shocking. Absolutely shocking. And I do have that other clip I wanted to show you in a second here. But it is absolutely astounding that she would even make these accusations. And I can't talk too much about what she's saying. I think she made it clear that she was a certain kind of slave and that the people who were using her liked children. And it's really quite a story.
I actually have a different point of view. I think Donald Trump played the American people. He ran on a platform of no war. He actually got his son and RFK Jr. to write an op-ed piece that was published in The Hill that said they want to get out of Ukraine and they want to prevent a nuclear conflict. But now his choice for the national security advisor is speaking after selection, which means the words he is saying have been approved by the Trump team, saying there's no gap, no space between what Biden's doing and what we're going to do.
He said exactly that yesterday on national television. I have spoken with Jake Sullivan. I have met with Jake Sullivan. We're on the same team. We view this international threats to the U.S., to the extent that there are any, precisely the same.
And he wouldn't make that
end the Ukraine war in 24 hours. Is that even thinkable?
No. Now what we found out is that Sebastian Gorka now, I mean, the ultimate lunatic.
Sebastian Gorka is like Lindsey Graham with a brain.
Lindsey Graham has a brain. Sebastian Gorka doesn't. Gorka is now saying things like, if Putin doesn't back down and yield to Trump, then they're going to open the floodgates and just flood Ukraine with weapons. So this isn't about people trying to sabotage covertly. Trump has picked people and empowered them to say things that clearly show that that's the intent. That's his direction.
Are you telling me that Trump's intent all along was to use Ukraine to dominate Putin, which would make it the same intent that Joe Biden had?
I don't want to believe that, but that's what the facts show. You don't pick a man as your national security advisor, then authorize him to go on TV and say there's no difference between what Jake Sullivan and Tony Blinken are doing and what we're going to do. Sebastian Gorka says we're going to double down on stupid and flood the weapons. And now you have to wonder what Marco Rubio is going to say, because he believes the same thing, all this hardline nonsense. He has surrounded himself with people that are pushing for a war with Russia. The only person that right now is in a position who isn't pushing for war is Tulsi Gabbard, and she's been silent.
Here's a recent clip from Sebastian Gorka.
I'll give one tip away that the president has mentioned. He will say to that murderous former KGB colonel, that thug who runs the Russian Federation, you will negotiate now, or the aid that we have given to Ukraine thus far will look like peanuts. That's how he will force those gentlemen to come to an arrangement that stops the bloodshed.
This is more bellicose than anything Antony Blinken, Jake Sullivan, or Joe Biden have ever said in the past 3.5 years.
Do you remember when Biden, someone asked him, is Trump a murderer or something like that? Trump's or is Putin Putin's a killer, stone cold killer. Looked him in the eyes and I told him he was a killer. And then everybody, he had to, that haunted his his ability to meet with Putin. He had to work around that because, how do you meet with a leader that you've called that? And so now here's a guy that claims to speak for Donald Trump, calling the Russian president a bug. There's no way Vladimir Putin's taking a phone call from Donald Trump with that literally Donald Trump, if you're listening, get rid of these people and bring in a Russian expert. You need an honest to God Russian expert. I'll tell you what, I'll volunteer for that job.
Donald Trump needs to go on television right now and say, Sebastian Gorka did 10 media interviews yesterday talking about how he wants a war with Russia, but I don't. I was elected on a platform of ending foreign wars and finding peace in Europe, in Ukraine, in the Middle East. That's why I was elected. Sebastian Gorka is a nut cake, a nut bar. He does not speak for me. He's got to say that Mark Waltz, his appointee, his nominee for National Security Advisor, does not speak for me when he says he's in the same league, he's singing the same song. He's completely in tune with Secretary of State Antony Blinken and current National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan. He needs to say they don't speak for me. They aren't speaking for me. That's not what my administration is going to be about. Because if he doesn't, there's going to be a breakdown in understanding and comprehension, and we are already seconds away from midnight on that nuclear clock. Seconds away. Closer today than we were in October. And that's all I can say, or else I'm going to be punished for sending out any warnings about what could come in the next few days, weeks, and if we have a month or two. I don't know. But that's what needs to happen from Donald Trump. I'm hoping and praying for the best. God knows I wrote a lot of columns supporting Trump's reelection based on the fact of what he was saying. I expected him to follow through on that, and I still do. But as I say about any politician, I'm never going to be in their pocket, and I'm always going to reserve the right to criticize because I'm a journalist, not a propagandist. I'm a reporter, not an entertainer who wants to just promote politicians and political parties without any criticism. That's where I see my stand. I'll say that again. I'll keep saying that. Thank you for watching today. I had more clips to show you, but we're running out of time. And I really should move the shows, to an hour long because we've got so much to do. And thank you for your comments. I wish I had more time to show you some of those comments today. I'm going to do more of that tomorrow. And I'm going to do at least 45 minutes tomorrow because there's so many things we need to talk about. And let's get up to date with question. Nothing happening in the House of Commons, by the way. I heard the NDP now is going to support the Liberals on this GST rebate and this check in the mail. That's about all that's happening in the House of Commons. Justin Trudeau is too busy traveling around the world, going to Taylor Swift concerts, looking like a fool, and then looking like a fool in front of NATO parliamentarians because they know he's an idiot and they know he's lying. So thank you for watching today. We'll be back again tomorrow with more of the news that you need to know. And keep resolving to resist. Be a freedom fighter.